fake chaos theory guarantees that we'll play like lightning shots, sounding like thunder. For every time in the face that it hits us, we're faster. Well, they should know by now. They see the world keeps trying to shake us. It only wakes us. The pendulum swings. The pendulum swings. It's in a beautiful darkness. Napoleon another. It's full steam ahead. Full steam ahead. All above the Betty Express. Misdirected from the start. It's a runaway train. Come a freight train. I come a freight train. In a beautiful darkness, the Betty Express. In a beautiful darkness.
Y'all buckle in. I hope you have snacks ready because we are starting off Monday with Tristan Esquire III cross-examining Father Time about DNA. Their expert might in fact have been there when they figured out that DNA was a double helix back in the 20s or 30s.
Okay, and good morning, Mr. Caneiro. All right, with that being said, the defense can call the next witness.
Judge, we're going to call Dr. Carl Reich.
Okay. Come on up, sir. Just come around this way, and then just watch your step if you don't mind. Sure. You just put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand over.
I'm just so glad to see Steve Martin again. I missed him after Father of the Bride and Cheaper by the Dozen. I didn't know he got into DNA.
There in the corner. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, once you're seated and comfortable, can you state your full name for the record and spell your last name, please?
My last name is Reich. That's R-E-I-C-H. First name Carl, K-A-R-L. Middle initial.
Oh, with a last name like Reich, maybe you shouldn't have maybe a speech impediment. That's interesting. We've got a Faustian trial in Georgia and now a defense witness named Reich. This is a weird timeline. And I am not dressed up as Kim K today. Look, y'all, I am in my comfiest clothes because my body is confused by all the weather changes, but I am wearing my Clue sweatshirt, and it is big enough that I can do this and still be absolutely covered. So when we need a signal that the defense might want to find a clue, I'll be showing that. As always, we have rapper shame and so much more. But dear God, let's figure out what is going on here.
Okay, thank you, sir. Go ahead, counsel.
Dr. Reich, good morning.
Morning.
Could you tell us where you're employed?
I work in a non-governmental forensic DNA laboratory located in suburban Chicago.
What do you do there?
I manage the laboratory. I'm responsible for the science that leaves that facility, and I'm responsible for paying the bills, running payroll, making sure there's snacks in the kitchen, the overall management of the laboratory.
Well, I'm glad you're in charge of the emotional support snacks. Now, unlike most people, I believe in the healing power of sugar and emotional support snacks. So you go. You are the best boss ever.
How long have you been doing that?
Since the fall of 2002.
And are there other scientists who are employed at the laboratory?
Yes, so we are now 15 full-time staff, and there's a couple of part-time individuals who work with us. It's grown slowly over the years.
What kind of work is the lab engaged in?
So we do a variety of forensic DNA things. So we do forensic testing. We do family relationship testing, otherwise sometimes known as paternity testing. We also are a small manufacturing facility because we have developed a series of products for the forensic DNA laboratory market, and we manufacture, sell, and support those to labs around the world. We do case consultation, and we have a small research and development effort in forensic DNA.
And when you say case consultation, Have you reviewed cases before where probabilistic genotyping has been used?
I have. That's a lot of them, let's put it that way.
Now, what got you started with DNA analysis?
So my scientific training is in molecular biology, which is the foundational field for forensic DNA. And so a number of years ago, we competed for a outsourcing contract from the Illinois State Police and started a laboratory to do that work. And that's where we are now.
Okay. Where did you go to school?
I have an undergraduate degree in chemistry from Cornell and a PhD in molecular biology from UCLA, and my thesis work was completed at Harvard Medical School.
Have you ever taught or lectured?
I have. Over the years, our laboratory has been asked to provide teaching sessions, maybe is the word, for our products and for comparing our products with what other labs use. And so now it's mostly remote work, but it used to be always on site.
Okay. Now, what you mentioned your lab again, is your lab accredited?
It is.
What does that mean?
It means that your laboratory has been subjected to an audit from an outside individual who follows a set of requirements to see if your laboratory meets them. Commercial labs like ours generally have 3 accreditations or can have 3 accreditations. And so there's an accreditation, or 2 actually, for forensic DNA. There's an accreditation for paternity testing, family studies. And New York State, unlike the other 49 states, doesn't accept anyone else's accreditation. So they have their own audit and proficiency tests for forensics and for family relationship testing so that we can accept samples from New York State residents.
Are you familiar with the laboratory methods and commercial kits that are used for obtaining DNA profiles?
I am. We've been doing this for over 20 years and have seen the evolution of both the instrumentation and the commercial kits.
Have you evaluated cases where there's been multiple contributors to a sample collected for DNA?
You're really talking about forensic DNA mixtures or mixed profiles.
Again, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but defense, listen very carefully. Say this is Paul. All right? This is Keith. Well, we'll give Paul some hair and put a P there. This is Keith. Now he's shorter and he's bald. So K. And this is Corey, who is also bald, but I think he's taller. Now, defense, I know this is going to be terribly difficult to understand, but unless you have Corey's DNA profile, no matter how closely related these alleles are, the reason that the state was able to concretely put Paul at the scene is because his unique genetic profile was there. So it doesn't matter that these people are related and that they do have alleles in common. Paul's was able to be sourced down to him over, I think, a trillion people. This is going to be an exercise in stupidity and strength, but Lord Jesus, let's let them explain how this guy from the Maury Povich show, who does, daddy DNA guesstimations, is the DNAologist we needed to crack this case.
And mixed profiles are an extremely common feature in forensic DNA. Maybe even the majority of evidentiary samples are mixed profiles. So the answer is yes.
Okay, so it sounds like you've also evaluated cases where there's been complex mixtures.
Certainly.
Have you, you said before you've evaluated cases where probabilistic genotyping software was used. What types of software would that include?
So there are now more commercial options than there were even a short time ago, but the 2 most used.
But Are both commercial options validated by court cases? Because, like Nick was explaining, that if they are going to try to introduce another system by which to look at DNA, then they are actually opening themselves up for a possible appeals case because this would be new technology. So, my question would be, has this particular new commercial option been validated by any prior court case as to its, validity, efficacy, and, lack of problems such as Star Mix has done in the last few years?
Used in the United States are programs called StarMix, and it's written STR and then a lowercase MIX, and then there's another software package by Cybergenetics. So those are the two that are most used. There are now some other commercial options.
Have you ever been qualified as an expert witness before?
I have.
And how many times would you estimate?
Over 200 times at this point.
In what subject?
Fairly restricted. So forensic biology, which is the identification of body fluids, forensic DNA, which is really forensic profiling, and the statistics of forensic DNA, depending on the court and the case.
Okay. Would you consider yourself an expert in forensic DNA and the statistics of forensic DNA?
I'm certainly a practitioner. I'm not sure I'd call myself an expert, but I work in this field.
You're a practitioner of DNAology? What in the new age hippy dippy? I'm going to have to search you now for ganja and patchouli oil and probably one of those screaming bowls. I wouldn't call myself an expert, more of a DNA facilitator. Oh, dear God. No, I kind of want you to be a little bit self-possessed of at least your internal faith that you have a grasp on this subject matter.
And that's
Has the court qualified you?
yes, I've been court qualified.
Okay. In terms of just the DNA analysis,
Okay.
How many times have you been qualified as an expert?
Oh, I would guess well over 150. Most of the times I'm in court is for the profiles.
Have you been qualified as an expert in DNA analysis in state court?
Yes,
Have you been qualified in DNA as an expert in DNA analysis in federal court?
that as well.
Okay. Judge, at this time, we would like to offer Dr. Reich as an expert in forensic DNA and forensic statistics.
Prosecutor?
Just one or two questions, Judge.
Okay.
Dr. Reich, you talked about the fact that you've reviewed cases involving probabilistic genotyping software, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and that includes StarMix,
That does.
that includes Trulia.
It does.
Those are the two kind of prominent probabilistic genotyping softwares that are used in the United States now.
That is correct.
StarMix is in about 90 labs
I
currently,
think it's more, but it's near that number, certainly.
and it's a lot more than Trulia, correct?
Yes, so if you want to, they have the market share, if you want to put it that way.
Right. Now, as far as StarMix goes, have you ever used it?
We do not have the license to the software.
So you've never used it?
That's correct.
I know that.
Okay, wait, DNA or defense. You brought on a DNA expert who has never had access nor uses StarMix, which is the gene phenotyping probabilistic DNA that you are questioning. Also, this mix of hairstyles right here. Now, I have seen this woman with a very tall bun, and I love her bun, but the way she's sitting, look, we are going to be squirreling a lot today. I don't want to unlearn everything I learned from Miss Frizzle and Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Okay. You guys have heard this charge many, many times, but we're going to do it again.
No offense, Judge,
You
but
should consider the conditions and facts wait other than the evidence in the first case. Whole trial. The other crimes charged. Can we follow that charge?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so Dr. Reich, let's just start off kind of broadly here. In terms of what we're talking about today. Um,
Yes, you should be praying because even Jesus isn't with you on this one, and he created DNA. He's like, "Look, I don't wanna be linked to this in any way right now. Up in heaven, dear God, keep me out of this. I created DNA, stop using it."
how much DNA do all human beings share?
We are all very similar, and at the DNA sequence level, we are 99.9897% identical.
Yeah, we share 19 or 90% of our chromosomes with chimpanzees, and I think, what, 70 or 57% with a banana. Where are we going with this?
And when we're talking about laboratories that are reviewing DNA using star mix and things like that, are those laboratories focusing on regions of our DNA where we are different or variable?
Yes, so I think you're referring to the genetic elements that are used to develop a profile. So we have to use areas where there are differences between individuals in order to try and develop a profile.
In terms of
I wanna skip this and watch, whoever it is destroyed, because I can't remember which lawyer destroyed the DNA evidence of O.J. Simpson, because I have a feeling we are not going to, in anywhere, hear anything as compelling as, the argument in the O.J. Simpson case as to why DNA should not exist. I think we're gonna hear the Zoolander approach to that. Also, does by this defense, kind of fight, does this mean that everyone who's been convicted solely on DNA mix, it was all a conspiracy?
the number of areas of difference where profiles are attempted to be generated, how many locations are we talking about?
Well, there are thousands.
When the state is so not bothered, he is looking at his Manny. We're catching this.
How many locations are we talking about?
And this is the posture that one has when he's going up against Tristan Esquire Ponytail III. Waste my time, bitch. I'm gonna have he's like buffing his nails. He's like, look, I don't even have to pay attention. I'm loving this energy from the state.
Well, there are thousands of them, but we only use a selected number in the US of 20. Some of the kits have a few more, but the minimum is 20 markers that were chosen by the FBI.
Okay. And when you say a marker, what does that word mean?
So it's a region of the DNA. It has several words that can be used. It's a locus, it's a genetic element, it's a marker, it's a region of the DNA that's defined.
Okay. And what's at that region that we're looking at?
So what we are using now is a particular genetic element called a short tandem repeat, which is abbreviated STR. And it's been the marker used for genetic identity since 1998, 1999.
Okay. So the short tandem.
So it's a technology that's been here since 1998, and all of a sudden, just in Paul's case in 2018, and then when more DNA testing was done in 2023, you're telling me that New Jersey just cocked it all up for no apparent reason?
Repeat, it can differentiate one person from another at that location?
It can. We share the limited number of choices at each one of those short tandem repeat markers. So we need to look at a large number of them, 20 in the US, in order to try and get a unique pattern for that person.
So that limited range of choices for the short tandem repeat, does that have a name?
So each choice at the marker, at the locus, at the STR region is called an allele. It's a value for that particular region on that particular individual.
And this would all make perfect effing sense if Paul's individual profile had not been found. If in fact, none of these samples actually aligned to Paul, that it would be much more, problematic. But they were actually able to pull his entire freaking profile. Oh God, this is gonna hurt me. This is gonna hurt me.
So at a single marker or a single location that we're looking at in terms of DNA, how many alleles would a person have at a single location?
So that varies a little bit with each locus, but if you want a back of the envelope calculation, it's 10. So you can think of it as a digit, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those
I feel like retaining my sanity is a lot to put on a, well, $9 multi-pack of fidget spinners, but we're gonna put our hope in the fidget spinners today.
are the choices at each locus, and if you look at all of the loci together, you might get a complete profile.
Now, when we look at alleles in terms of a laboratory's output, when a laboratory shows essentially the work that
Oh
it's
no,
done,
you
and
guys, we're not going to
expresses
survive. We are
an
going to
allele.
skip
How does it-
forward.
Every one of these references has a grade. And so row by row, you can see how similar, how much sharing there is across these individuals. And I've just changed the colors to make it slightly easier. So for D21, which is about the top third, I use the 2 brown and so forth and so on. So it's just demonstrating how much sharing there is among these.
Yes, you morally incompetent super idiots. Yes, it's almost as if when you have a crime scene involving a family member unaliving an entire family, there might be genetic crossover because of the relation. Holy Jesus, someone help me.
Individuals.
And in this, actually, we see some boxes that they have vertical lines.
The bar and those can be
Cross
useful
yet?
in the elimination of
Oh,
good
holy
as well.
God, they're not even on cross yet. We should be better. The internet is still doing that little hiccup thing. Is it still robotic? Okay, hopefully we should be doing better. If not, I will go out and come back in. Because we are having, okay. Oh, all right, we're back. Still, oh, let me know this. It's like this instant flicker, so I can't always tell when I go off. So just let me know, and I do seem to be able to fix it.
So I'm going to skip now to slide 5. Have you taken those gray areas where sharing hasn't occurred and specifically broken them out in this slide?
I have. So because the color chart is confusing enough, I'm sorry, I wanted to identify where there are some, we're going to call them indicator alleles. They're not unique alleles in the population, but they are indicators for these 5
All right,
individuals.
let me go out and come back in, see if that fixes everything. All right. No, I don't need 2 of me. Why are you doing this? Dear Lord, please let my internet stay on today. It's not like I ask much. All righty. Why do I have 3 of me? No idea. When are we gonna get to cross? You cannot do this to the jury. It is gonna hurt their soul.
And so you can see that some of the individuals don't have an indicator allele. Jesse Caneiro, for example, and Keith Caneiro, but Jennifer does, and Sophia does, and Paul Caneiro does. And so those, if they show up, can tell us some information. So from the color chart on the left, I took out all the colors and just left the indicator positions on the right-hand side.
So the takeaway here is that on the right side of the screen, where any area on the chart where we don't see shading, and there is some degree of allele change between these references.
That's correct. That was the point of changing it the way it did.
I've moved on to screen 6. These shaded areas have now been represented as numbers. Is that correct?
Well, the shaded areas always represented alleles, and now you can see the specific alleles that are represented. The indicator allele calls are now on the inside, at least on my screen, and from the actual full chart to a color coding to try and show shared alleles, to indicate alleles, the actual allele that we're talking about.
So moving into some of the actual testing that we did in this case, we see in the perspective, this is what do we see here?
So I'm sorry, there's a lot going on. The left hand.
Mr. Scientist, you do realize that, oh, for heaven's sake. Let's see if it comes back. We might be needing to Let's hope we've got this correct. It looks like it's got my right headphones. So we should be back again. Unfortunately, we're just going back to listen to more "This is what DNA is." So all right. Let's see, share screen. Oh, Lord. Let's see what oh, okay, well, they're all talking about the, Savannah Guthrie thing. Now, y'all are chat. We have missed some of this riveting testimony. If you guys would like me to go back, well, I wish that you wouldn't, but you guys are in charge. So if you guys want to go back and see what we've missed during our technical difficulty, or we're just, going to say that God was saving us from hurting our souls, it's really up to you. Uh, I'm okay. I'm this particular time. Son of a biscuit.
A, so there are two individuals who are listed on the Bodie chart, and the major would be Sophia Caneiro, and the minor would be Paul Caneiro. The 5% would be Paul Caneiro, and the likelihood ratio difference is substantial.
Again, you moldering idiots. I know this is hard to understand, but if Sophia was the major component in a blood stain of Sophia's blood, then yes, Paul is going to be the minor contributor because the main DNA picked up is Sophia. Now, I'm a twice college dropout, but I am able to, extrapolate from different data points a theory and an understanding.
Again, as we were looking at previously.
Oh no, not
in
normal
your
speed.
PowerPoint, do we see here a analysis of the weight breakdown
Nope.
for contributor number 2?
This is exactly the same kind of analysis you just showed, and it's the same kind of analysis I did here. Instead of putting the actual allele calls of the reference standard of Paul Caneiro, somebody has outlined in yellow where his profile is not the most probable. Same concept. I'd like to put more results in the table, but the idea is the same, that his profile is not the most probable at many of the loci that Star Mix used in its calculations.
I'm working on a merch shop.
Scrolling down.
I was not impressed with T-Stream's kind of mock T-shirts that they did of some of my designs. So I am looking for somewhere other than Teesprings to do merch. So I've got a website I need to look at that Publicly Buzzed uses. So I am getting merch shop stuff done. I'm just trying to find a quality, shop that isn't going to gouge you guys, but also is going to be a good quality that you wear it once and the vinyl-y stuff doesn't start washing off.
Is this on this page of the Star Mix analysis, this is a continuation of the weighting per contributor 2?
It is. So in the original document, it's on continuous pages, and I put them on one page so I wouldn't have to scroll, to be honest. Section on the next column over, and someone has highlighted where Mr. Caneiro's allele calls are not at the top of the probability list.
Here, I'm just going to take us to page 8. Well, it's actually, I'm sorry, it's page 54540 of this. This is, do you see that there's something labeled component interpretation summary?
Yes, it's right in the middle of the page.
What is that?
So this is showing where one of the alleles of the reference profile that's used in the comparator is at its most probable. And so you can see there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 areas where at least one of the alleles shows up as the highest probability, which means all of the others are at a lower probability. And so you mentioned earlier that star mix is a continuous approach to calculating likelihood ratio. And so the program is taking into account even the areas which are lower probability than the ones which are a direct comparison. And so there aren't actually very many where the most probable is actually similar to the reference profile, which is why the likelihood ratio is such a small number.
So what we can see, one of the things we can take away, I'm just going to zoom in on this if you don't mind. For contributor 1, more areas is data than for contributor 2.
That's correct. So you have the same data, but the program is using its calculation and comparing that. And so there are many more loci with the highest probability in that calculation when compared to the reference profile.
And then for contributor 2, the 5% contributor on the right side here, the areas in yellow, it would be fair to say that those are areas where we don't have information, or where star mix, or is it better to say, these are areas where star mix cannot express a requisite level of certainty to.
And Mr. Mo just told me that apparently Xfinity is sent him a message because he's the bill payer guy. And there is an angry owl. I guess I want to see the angry owl. I love that I have ADHD. But apparently there are some internet issues. So if internet goes away, we will just, hope that afternoon works, but we will muddle through. It's not like if we glitch out a little bit, we're missing much.
About what the information would tell us.
The requisite probability is not the highest, because this is a table. If you go up to see the table, it's demanding 99%, and those in yellow do not meet that criteria.
Does star mix tell in its output? Can star mix tell you anything about other than what we see in these in the conclusions table? Is there a way when you interpret the data to tell how good star mix thinks its models are?
There's a couple of different ways to.
Again, Old Man River, why the hell are you telling us about star mix when you aren't licensed to use it and have never used it in your professional capacity? I mean, I don't know. I'm just waiting for the state to clean this up.
The one that's early is a convergence value, where it tells you how easily.
Look, I am not making fun of this man because he has a stutter, because I love the King's Speech. I am pissed off at his stutter because it's going to take longer to get through this direct now. God dang it. It's a Monday morning. This should be against the Geneva effing Convention. Someone needs to call the judge. We should not have to deal with this. The jury should not have to deal with this first thing on a Monday damn morning.
The program was able to make its models. So there's a couple other ways of looking at it, but that's the one that's right on the first page of the deconvolution report. So we're looking at the first page in the post burn-in summary table. The third row is the Gelman-Rubin convergence diagnostic. This tells us it's a diagnostic that's built into the program. It tells us how easy it was for the program to do its calculations, to develop its model of the profile. And you want that number to be as close as possible to 1. As that number gets away from 1.01, 1.02, 1.04, it's harder and harder for the program to make a model. And that's a warning sign about the program.
By the way,
Before the next question, can you just span back out for a minute?
Yes, sorry.
So that we know what we're talking about for the record. So it's D142. Sorry, go ahead.
So when we're looking at D142, we're looking at the Gelman-Rubin convergence. We see it's a 1.04. By the way, when you say, Doctor, that you want it to be as close to 1 as possible, we're dealing with so many different kinds of numbers here today. How far away would a number need to stray from 1 in order to be, let's say, a bad Gelman-Rubin convergence?
I hesitate to call it bad. So each laboratory develops its Gelman convergence ratio warning sign, if you want, and it varies from lab to lab, of course, according to their validation. But when you start seeing 1.1 or higher, many laboratories mark that as go look at it, do something else, make the program work harder, do something to try and get that number better, lower, closer to 1.
Is this Gelman-Rubin convergence going to change based on the sample that is being looked at by StarMix?
It's going to change from the original input data. It's not going to change in the comparison you make with a reference profile. So it's telling you how good the program was able to make its model from the original data.
Sir, I never thought I'd say this, but please go back to making dumbass Avatar movies. What are we on, like, aren't we on the 4th Avatar, Land, Earth, Water, Sea, Captain Planet? Go work on that movie. Now, I particularly was not moved by Avatar. Sorry. Mr. Mo loves that movie. I'm like, thank God I don't have to watch it again. Dances with Smurfs. And I never thought I'd actually encourage Spielberg to make another one. But, sir, go do Captain Planet, the Avatars combined, and stop hurting us.
It doesn't yet know what you're going to compare it to, but it's going to get there later.
Staying in 142.
Remake The Abyss, MFer. Maybe you can trauma that of act.
153. Can you see which sample this item relates to?
So the sample, the header tells us the sample, which is EO4.
And in EO4, conclusions generated by Bodie in terms of their conclusions table?
There are. The table lists EO4 as one of the samples that they provide conclusions from.
In this sample, did they include very strong support for including Paul Caneiro?
That's the verbal scale that's used for that sample in comparison with Mr. Paul Caneiro.
Right. When we look, and in terms of the number in the conclusion table for EO4A1, was Paul Caneiro, the number listed below his name, was at 200 million?
That's the likelihood rate that the program calculated, and that Bodie recorded in the table.
What we see here also is there a summary of contributors?
There is.
And was the major in this sample, who was the major in this sample?
According to the chart, we're going to look at that. That's Sophia Caneiro.
And who was, based on the reference samples that they had, who was the assumed?
1 second. I'm going straight to hell, but let's be real. My internet's crapping out. It's a Monday, and I'm mid-flare with both legs, so we're all going. So, yeah, we're going to hell, but why am I hearing this?
Down like a clown, Charlie. Down like a cloud, Charlie. Down like a cloud, Charlie. Down, Charlie.
Like I said, I'm not really. Look, I'm glad that he has worked through his stutter, but holy God, he is just making us sit here longer. Not only he can't say Caneiro, so the little girl who has her blood all over her uncle's jeans, which, you know, all of your little color charts don't change the fact that Sophia and Jesse Caneiro's blood was not only found in gloves that were, you know, DNA linked to Paul, but on his gosh darn jeans. So I really don't care how many color blocks from Narnia land you use. Why are you wasting our time, sir? Like I said, you could be going and remaking The Abyss. You could make Avatar The Abyss level.
Minor.
Would be Paul Caneiro.
Just to zoom in here, can you see the percentages of between, broken down between the major and minor contributor?
We do.
And what would be the percentage contributor?
I love the defense's idea and, modus operandi here because, the one thing that people really easily grasp is statistics and how to use them correctly.
By the minor contributor.
According to the program, 3% of the total signal comes from the minor contributor.
Going to
Which, you maximal morons, is why Paul's, likelihood is lower because the quantity of the DNA of his that is in there is smaller than the quantity of DNA that is Sophia's in there. If you could all just freaking come back to reality.
the convergence diagnostic here, do we see that it is north of 1.1, for example?
It's larger than 1.1.
Okay. 1.1 was the threshold that you had mentioned previously as a guidepost.
It's a threshold I've seen in other laboratories, and there's nothing standard, but yes, it's much, in this version, it's bigger than the 1.04 and the 1.02 we've seen for the other calculations.
Okay. And again, what does that express about StarMix's confidence in the results that it's generating here?
I don't think confidence is the word I would use. It expresses at some level how the program was able to successfully perform its calculations. So this is a warning sign that it had trouble, and it didn't necessarily, its model needs to be looked at again, human-wise, and just accepting it as
Oh, come on.
He didn't fall? Inconceivable. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Yeah, confidence. Again, the problem is that it doesn't have as much confidence because Paul is the minor. I vaguely understand math. Like I said, Miss Fleener, I apologize to you because you attempted, bless your heart, to teach me trigonometry. And we both should have realized that was never going to happen. But I failed trigonometry. Like, I got out of there with a high D+, all right? My mom was so proud. And the fact that I can understand statistics and what they're trying to do is, Miss Fleener, I'm going to send you a bouquet, okay? Because you obviously gave me the tools to do critical thinking, and they never helped me with math.
as from the program itself.
I'm just going to.
Coming to the end? Coming to the end? No!
And I just want to bring up your original PowerPoint this time. So again, now we're going back to your PowerPoint. Again, we see your allele table here. The software doesn't know whether you're putting related people or unrelated people into it, does it?
No, you idiot. Everyone has a unique DNA. People that share DNA might have the same markers, but they're not always going to. Oh. Let's continue. I can't stop every time he says something stupid. We'd never get done.
It's not.
The software generates a statistic, but the statistic, am I correct, assumes unknown, unrelated individuals.
The likelihood ratio calculation is making an assumption that the mixed DNA profile is derived from unrelated individuals, and it's making one of the propositions, assuming that all of the unknown contributors are unrelated. So the direct relationship of either the contributors to the mixture or the direct relation of the comparator doesn't figure into how the program is doing its calculation. And one thing, this is not my table, this is the Bodhi table. Excuse me.
Sorry. This Bodhi table within your presentation here, this, I'll clarify, this wasn't created by you, this was created at some other time, right?
Correct.
Okay. But the understanding is that in some fashion, all of the people present in this table are related to one another.
Certainly, Paul and Keith are related. Jesse and Sophia are related to Keith and Jennifer. My understanding is that Jennifer is not related, except by marriage, to the other four. But that's all I know from the minimal.
Well, thank God New Jersey doesn't allow consanguineous or brother-sister marriages. No shit, she's not related. She's the sister-in-law. That's kind of how marriages go in, well, areas that are papal, or at least followed Roman Catholic doctrine in their early inception.
Documentation I have.
And welcome, Baker Raiders. We are learning what DNA is and how DNA has been used to solve many cases, but the DNA used in this case is in fact wrong. Wrong.
This has been to analyze situations like this where all reference samples, not to everybody, but all reference samples are related to at least one other person who's also a reference sample?
That aspect of the validation has not been done.
Okay. Is it possible for that kind of validation to be done on software like this?
Yes, it's possible.
Okay, if I wanted to validate the software to be used in a situation like this, where all reference samples are related to at least one other reference sample, how would I go about doing that?
What sort of an overview of how you would do that? Okay, so I would have to go out and find a series of families who I would then demonstrate by paternity testing that they are all direct.
Hey, thank you for being a member for 21 months. We have seen him because he created Avatar. Steven Spielberg took some time off, and rather than, giving us Avatar, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Captain Planet, he decided to do DNA. This is the defense's DNA expert that is here to explain that because Paul might have unalived, family members, DNA is no longer useful for anything.
And I could get approval to use their samples anonymously, and I would have to then develop a set of mixed DNA profiles from those individuals. I find a series of large families, test them to make sure that they are in fact related as I think they are. I would take their samples, anonymize them, make them all numbers, and then make a whole bunch of different mixtures from their DNA. Mixtures of 2, 3, and 4 individuals at all kinds of different ratios. I would then provide those electropherograms to StarMix, and then I would test those mixtures against the members.
All right, for our first Mad Lib, and so me and ChatGPT kind of started with the defense's opening statements and rewrote them. So the first one is just a normal brother, what the defense should have done for their opening statements. Paul Caneiro was known by his friends and family as a crying man who enjoyed polka dancing and strongly believed in porta potties. On the day in question, he was simply running while thinking about his bathroom like anyone would. Later events involving trees and watching his neighbors through the hedge are being wildly misinterpreted by people with too many paddles and not enough sensible thinking. Actually, more coherent than the defense's actual opening statement. Now, the next Mad Lib we're going to do, and I'll start putting the things I need in this, is what Paul said was actually going on. So we will be going through that, and I'll be writing these down. I did have these scheduled to go on, on the autopsy day. So I didn't feel it was appropriate to do Mad Libs on autopsy day, but since we are just Well, we're breaking down the Nobel winning prize work of, the discovery of DNA and every future scientific advance has happened. Because how could DNA know?
Of family, both the people I made the mixed profiles from and members of the family who I didn't use in the mixture, and ask how good does the star mix give me those likelihood relations? And you would have to do that for some number of families, not 50, 3, 4, something like that. A lot of work to do, a lot of mixtures, but then you would have a start about how the program handles mixtures made from direct family members and how good it is at distinguishing the known non-contributors from contributors.
To your knowledge, has that been done or has it been attempted?
I'm not aware of any, I don't have every laboratory's validation, but I have a number of them. And I've seen that done.
Now, we're aware that, that through your review of this case, are you aware that Keith and Paul did have another sibling?
Yes, that was in one of the police reports I was given.
And are you aware that that sibling's name is Corey?
I believe that's correct.
In your review of the Bodie case file, and this case in general, was there ever a reference in Corey that was considered by a Bodie laboratory?
Not by the Bodie Laboratory.
Did they?
Okay, defense, I'm going to explain this to you for the last GD time. This is Paul. So P. This is going to be Keith. And this is going to be Corey. Now, the interesting thing is that while they are all brothers, they all have what is known as a unique DNA profile because none of these are identical twins. So the fact that they were able to pick up only Paul's genetic signature and Keith's on the things that Keith bled on still in fact precludes Corey because Paul was actually identified. So even if we threw Corey in there, he wouldn't be identified because it was Paul's signature, his DNA signature, for the love of Cheetos. So the jury has now spent almost 2 hours listening to this man confuse DNA.
So, without sample we start able to strong conclusion likely that Corey being any of these pictures?
No, you must have the reference profile that you're interested in used in the software. It doesn't invent a DNA profile and then compare it. You have to give it what you want it to work with.
We saw areas where people were concluded to be potential contributors in the Bodie conclusion table. Without knowing Corey's profile, is it possible to tell whether or not Corey might be a higher likelihood?
Defense, did you give them a sample of Corey's blood? Because if you didn't, if you are not going to call Corey, I want you to get Corey's name out your mouth, all right? Where is Will Smith when you need him? Because there's been a lot of Coreys coming out of people's mouths, and unless you're going to actually test the DNA and put your money where your mouth is, I really don't want to hear anything, because every single piece of evidence, we had 14 days of the state bringing actual witnesses and building up all of this against Paul. Nothing ever went to Corey. None of the evidence ever led to Corey. None of anything ever led back to Corey. And that's why he wasn't considered a suspect, because everything was found in Paul Caneiro's house. Paul Caneiro was the one that was stealing money from tracks.
No, to determine what you're asking, you have to have that profile of interest, and it's not in the documentation for Bodie.
How is it that related people can contribute to false inclusion within a sample?
Well, I've tried to show how these profiles are very similar to each other. And so the program, as you also have seen, doesn't use all of the data equally. So the highest probability for some
Have
of
a
the
good lunch,
loci, there is a comparison, and then for others, it's not. So as you have similar and similar profiles that are being compared, the program doesn't have as much to work with because there's only a few indicator alleles that are possible. And so it's going to get, I would say, confused, not really the correct term. It's going to not be able to provide the most reliable results when there is this much allele sharing and when the comparator is also similar to all of the other references.
So,
come on, Kristen.
with respect to the fact that we're in a situation, we have siblings who are reference samples in this testing. We have another sibling who is not a reference sample, whose information is missing. How can that specifically impact the determinations that StarMix made regarding the minor contributors?
It's not going to change the numbers it's already calculated, but if you had another reference profile, you could then compare the likelihood ratio calculations of this unknown sibling to the ones you have, and then you'd be able to rank them. Who has the highest likelihood ratio? Without that reference profile, you can't because there's no calculation possible. But if you had that and the likelihood ratios were higher at some locations, that impacts your conclusions about the data you have.
Just in very general terms, is it better for a laboratory to have more rather than fewer elimination and reference samples?
In my opinion, absolutely.
Because does having more elimination and reference samples give a laboratory more data to work with?
There's more data to work with, and so
No defense. At this point, you are stating that since the state didn't test each and every one of us in America, how can we possibly know that Paul was the one that was there, despite his DNA file being found there? It's a conspiracy, I tell you. It's, yes, Jay Walsh, it's a bold strategy. This gentleman, Paul Caneiro, is accused of committing a quadruple homicide against his brother Keith, his brother's wife Jennifer, and their 2 children. I do have a story time breakdown that is a bit longer that kind of walks you through this trial that I put out on Saturday. If you want to get kind of the background and kind of what we knew when it was a true crime story, because this particular case, the incident that we're getting now happened in 2018. In Denver and the COOF, this has been delayed for many years. So there is a bit of, things that we learned through true crime podcasting and things like that, and then things that have come out during the trial. So it is a longer stream, but it does kind of go into all that we've learned thus far from the trial, where the defense is trying to make their points and that kind of thing. Now, the defense is basically that there was so much evidence and incriminating evidence found at Paul's house that this was, of course, a setup. Their client is not a moron, so of course he would not have left all of the incriminating evidence in his own home, and that Corey Caneiro was never tested. So those have been the 3 main sticking points of their defense. Now, the first 2, the fourth kind of other alternate prong in their defense is that, well, Paul might have stolen $78,000 from his brother's life insurance trust, but maybe for you guys, for you poors out there, $78,000 is a lot of money, but for Paul, it was cheap change, chump change. So he did do a little bit of thieving, but for Paul, it was, just a little bit of money. He could have totally paid it back. He would never have unalived his family members.
the final conclusions are going to be stronger.
Without that additional data, there's no statements that the laboratory can make about the potential for that person to be a contributor. Do I have that right?
You have that correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we start with the cross-examination, I'm going to give you a few minutes just to kind of do a jumping jack or whatever you want in the jury room, and bring it back out in a couple minutes.
Ooh, I love it. The state stretching. And through the power of being behind. Oh, okay. So let's get into this cross-examination. Now, I will say that the state has been very, very good at bringing up witnesses from their own case that were, even with this very dense sort of DNA information, attempt to really demystify it and really of what their probability tests mean and didn't mean. So I think it will be interesting to see how the state cross-examines this man. Why aren't we getting audio? This might be a further voir dire, or Court TV is having a moment. Oh.
I can try. Okay.
It was muted on my end. I am a professional. Okay, I have it unmuted. Now, these are Paul's family shuffling in, and they have been habitually late. And I don't know why that bothers me, but it just bothers me that they've been habitually late.
You're very conversant in StarMix, correct?
I've seen a lot of reports use it. I've looked at a lot of validations. We don't use it in our laboratory.
Understood. Understood. But you understand and you're able to explain it, correct?
I can try.
Okay. And you even talked about concepts that are kind of in the weeds, like the Gelman-Rubin, right?
Sorry, but yes, I did.
That's okay. That's okay. Now, your lab, I think you're not still doing like the wet lab work, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Others at your lab do that.
That's also correct.
Okay. So you guys actually, you said something about a contract with the Illinois State Police. Is that accurate?
We don't have any active, we have been working with them, against them. Law enforcement, they're not one of our major customers, if that's what you mean.
Okay. But you guys do, your lab that is, does forensic DNA testing regularly, correct?
We're a small lab, but yes.
And the statistic that you guys, that is your lab, generally uses with respect to DNA testing and conclusions would be that RMP, correct?
Correct.
That random match probability?
Fair enough.
And fair to say, though, your lab also uses likelihood ratios, correct?
We do. If we do paternity testing, we are using a likelihood ratio. Absolutely.
And likelihood ratios, it's a concept in DNA or a statistical mechanism within DNA that's used all over the world, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so is RMP, correct?
Also correct.
You testified that with the likelihood ratio, StarMix is not actually giving us like a yes or a no, right?
That's also correct.
Okay, but with an RMP, the random match probability, you're not giving your clients like a yes or a no, correct?
That's also correct.
You're giving them like a 1 in, let's just say 1 in a million.
Any number you want, it's a frequency.
Okay, it's a frequency, correct?
It is.
And when we talk about that, and I'm using a hypothetical, that 1 in.
Also, Frequency is a good movie. Love it. Love Jim Caviezel. Love whatever. What's his face? The other guy. I am not my mother. My mother would know the name of what's his face. I do not.
A million frequency. We're talking about a hypothetical population, correct? When you report that RMP?
Okay, you're using a known population to calculate it, but you're comparing it to doing tests.
Oh God, Court TV was like, I can't do it anymore. The test was like, no, I'm done. I'm out. Oh God. There's been a technical difficulties. If this isn't a commentary on this trial. I don't know, but this might be the funniest part of the Caneiro trial to me. Well, we are currently in technical difficulties hell, and I find that I'm not too upset that we are missing the current. Well, I actually am upset. Daggone it. We were finally getting someone to demystify this like a human smart person, and the one part I want to listen to, not Tristan Esquire Ponytail the Third, but the states. Let me see if Law and Crime has it, because we've been watching court TV. No. What the name of Hades? All right, so we will go back because it looks like Law and Crime has
talked
it
a little bit
going.
about that first. Okay, and that was that whole, from the Bodie, conclusion report, they say things like very strong support for inclusion, right?
That's the verbal scale they're using, yep.
Now, I understand that's not something that you think is helpful to the numbers, correct?
Correct.
That comes from somewhere, right? That verbal scale
It does.
comes from something called SWIDDAM. Maybe.
So the recommendation to use the verbal scale comes from SLADEM, that's correct. But each laboratory makes up their own version of their own verbal scale and uses it.
Some say anything under, anything over 1 is, informative or something like that, right?
It's very arbitrary and each lab does its own.
When we talk about numbers in DNA, either whether we're talking about an RMP or an LR, I mean, there's going to be varying degrees of numbers or significance, right?
You mean the numbers vary? They do.
Okay, so, sometimes you see, like here, you saw a likelihood ratio in one of the samples of 21,000, right? Or something like that.
Sure.
Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that that number is wrong, correct?
It's just a number.
Okay, it's just a number. It's just really about how probative is it? How big, what does that number mean, right?
What does that number mean in the context? That's fair.
Again, you guys, going to hell?
Like a clown, Charlie. Down like a clown, Charlie. Down like a clown, Charlie. Brown. Charlie.
Y'all, what the hell is this case?
Okay, so it's not like wrong, it's just a smaller number might not be as important to, say, a jury as a big number.
I think that's fair too.
And because with your lab, for instance, I'm sure there's been times when you've done DNA analysis and you've kind of come to the conclusion that, that hypothetical population, like you might report 1 in 551 unrelated individuals, right? You could report something like that, right?
The numbers can be calculated to that. That's correct.
Okay. Again, 551, if you were asked by the, the DA or the defense attorney, whoever you're doing the work for, you might just say, it's 551. It's not 8 octillion, right?
He has a stutter.
Providing a context to the number, I think, is important, but the number at some point is just the number.
Okay. Now, you know what? Could I have, Mr. Murray, could I have the PowerPoint for a moment, if you don't mind?
Anything beyond allowing him to get like a big crave sack from White Castles was too much.
Can I page 1? Yes. Now, Doctor,
Why did he look like it burns? It burns. They're using Windows 11. I mean, what was that? It was like garlic to a vampire. Do you have porphyria?
We're looking at page 1 of the PowerPoint you created, correct?
I'm with you.
And that's actually, but that's Bodie's chart, right?
It is.
Okay. And here we have all the profiles, right?
We have the reference standards in the case for voting.
Okay. Now, on page 2, if I could, sorry. Here we talk about, and you explained, shared alleles, correct?
I tried.
Makes sense, makes sense. I was able to figure it out, I think. Now, when we talk about shared alleles, I think they did a calculation, and I think you've done it too, as to how many alleles Keith Caneiro and Paul Caneiro shared, right?
I think we calculated the percentage sharing.
So I think you said 74. I thought it was 72. It's somewhere in that range, right?
Absolutely.
So that means that they don't share, let's just say 30 or 28%.
30%.
And the idea, part of what makes DNA so powerful is its ability to differentiate amongst people.
Oh, thank you, state prosecutor. Thank you for bringing up the point that the moron defense is being, well, willfully oblique about. Paul's DNA profile was found, not alleles that, generally kind of coincide with being related. No, his entire profile. Thank you.
Two people, correct?
I think the ability to come up with genetic identity is the whole foundation of DNA profiling and its use.
So, like, people share, like everyone, unrelated people share DNA profiles and alleles, correct?
They do.
Okay, because even like we said before, you said it before, Jennifer Caneiro and Paul Caneiro, they're not related, right?
That was my understanding.
Okay. And you're only as good as the information you get, right?
Even if that, but certainly I need the information.
Okay. So assuming for a second Jennifer Caneiro and Paul Caneiro are related only by way of marriage and they're not actually like biologically related, they still, as I calculated, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, they still shared about 32, 34% of alleles. Does that sound about right?
That's expected.
Okay, right?
Yep.
That's about a good number for, me and Miss Wallace who aren't related.
Absolutely.
And when we look at Sophia and Paul are 56% different, approximately. That sound right?
Okay.
Is that?
I didn't do the calculation, but it's not an unreasonable figure.
And I think Jesse and Paul Caneiro are about 50% the same or 50% different. Does that sound about right?
That's
Okay, but when we looked at those Bodie samples, some of the conclusions that were drawn, a lot of those samples.
They got an expert and failed to tell the expert, nor could the expert ferret out with our basic laws that Keith and Jennifer weren't related because they, officially got married in the U.S. government, they got a license, which means that they were not related. This is not in Indiana. This is not in Florida. Why are we? Good God, I can't.
Samples were able to differentiate, let's say, Jesse, from Paul, or to exclude Jesse, to exclude Jennifer. Isn't that right?
well, we know that the analyst did that visually. Whether that's 100% correct is different, but that was reported.
Wait, is Steven Spielbergish over here trying to say? Is he trying to just say like DNA just doesn't exist? I mean, or that, humans can't do the work of robots. Oh my God, Spielberg wanted Terminator. He wanted the Terminator to win.
And the DNA analyst could visually exclude potentially, correct? Not saying they're right, just saying they did visually exclude, right?
Reported.
Okay, and then when you looked at those deconvolution reports, or some of those charts we were looking at, and you looked at all the individual locus or the loci, you could see like that Q18, 1218, right? So you could actually look at it that way as well, correct?
We did, and I did.
Okay, so you could exclude or include using those loci, correct? Those values at that loci.
I wouldn't The visual exclusion wouldn't use the inferred genotype table. It would use the actual results of the reference profile with the evidentiary sample.
Okay, and what we really want to look at if we're visually excluding, we want to look at that electrophoregram, right?
Correct.
That's the gold standard of what you need to do DNA analysis.
I would call it the foundational data. I don't necessarily think it's the gold standard. Those are the actual data.
That's, okay, so that is what a DNA scientist.
What would you call it? Participation award data? For the love of God, semantics that this man, like, look, I wouldn't call myself an expert, which, yes, facts not in evidence, you're not. I mean, you're an expert in who's the daddy test, and there might be a reason, like when the Illinois Police Department does not want to work with you, one of the most allegedly corrupt police forces, and even they don't want to work with you, it might be a sign.
Ultimately looks at once those 4 steps are done at the table, right?
Correct.
That's the data, and then it ultimately that electrophoregram, the machine creates kind of a chart of data from that 4-step process, right?
It's the picture from which we deduce the profile.
And ultimately, Dr. Wright, I think you'd agree with me that StormX doesn't take the human work out of DNA analysis, correct?
By no means.
Okay, so still, you need qualified scientists that are trained, they know how to extract DNA, they know how to get it to ultimately end up in electrophoregram, correct?
At the moment, we need people.
Gotcha. And ultimately,
What in the name of the message? We're putting a message. You are okay, Spielberg-ish. We don't need more women in STEM if they're not qualified. Look, if you're a woman and you want to be in STEM and you want to rock the world out because you understand numbers, that is awesome. But if you're a woman in STEM and you can't keep up with current trends or, the responsibilities and needs of your job, don't join it. Don't join it just so you can be a woman in STEM and break the glass ceiling. Be in it because you're good and you want to join.
those scientists still need to look at that electrophoregram, and they need to determine things like an estimate, at least, of number of contributors, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so, the data for number of contributors in that chart from Bodie, sometimes it says 1, sometimes it says 2, sometimes it says 3, right?
Does?
And based upon your review, I don't think you commented that you saw any massive issues with delineation of number of contributors for any one sample, right?
It's an estimate that the analyst makes. You can make generally other estimates, but there was nothing unusual about Bodie's conclusions at that level.
Because obviously, I think you said it earlier, but number of contributors is never something that we can say, or scientists can say with absolute certainty, right?
Correct. We have no absolute way of determining the number of contributors. We can only estimate it. The minimum is what we can estimate.
Right, because if we look at an electrophoregram, we look at all the different locus, and at every locus, let's say there's 3 peaks, we're probably going to say there's 2 contributors, right?
Correct.
But if there were 2 peaks at every loci, ultimately we're going to say there's 1 contributor, right?
We're going to call that a single source.
Okay. Now, as far as single sources go, one of the samples that you looked at was from the New Jersey State Police Lab. It was number 6-1-4-1.
Yes, I'm with you.
And that was a sample from that same pair of genes, correct?
I believe so.
And I believe ultimately New Jersey State Police said that Jesse Canerio was the source of the DNA profile from those genes. Do you remember that?
I don't, but I'll take your word for it that was what there was.
Based upon the reports that you wrote in this case, you did not take any issue with that conclusion. Is that accurate?
Now I'm with you. Yes.
Okay. Because you were showing some samples this morning during your direct, right?
Correct.
A bunch of different, not a bunch, but a few different evidentiary samples that went to Bodie, right?
Correct. We talked about the jeans, the gloves, and so
But not the stain that conclusively puts Paul and his niece's blood in the same place on the same item of clothing and was basically the gold standard of ironclad. No, we kind of skipped that one. Coincidence?
Okay. And then Bodie also, as you know, based upon the work or the reports and the like that you got from Bodie, they also actually did some DNA analysis that didn't involve star mix. Isn't that accurate?
that's correct.
Okay. One of the things they analyzed was a hair that was on a scarf that was found in the same area as those photos you looked at. Is that accurate?
I think so. I don't remember that specifically yet, but I'm listening.
Okay. You don't remember the scarf?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't have any, but if I wrote it, I did then.
We're at 502. On the approach.
You can.
Thank you.
Sure. Don't mind my tab.
Not at all.
I showed you what's been marked as S502 for identification. Do you recognize that?
I do.
Okay. And ultimately, you know what? I gave you the wrong document. Sorry. It's 503. I'll show you what's been marked as S497. Just going to show you what's been marked as S497. Do you recognize what that is?
I do. This is a Bodie Technology amended supplemental forensic case report dated May 6, 2021.
Okay. Now, one of the samples listed on page 1 is, we'll just call it E13. Is that okay?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that's described as what?
Described as a hair/fiber A removed from the Brooks Brothers scarf, and then there's a item number 18-0861-14.
Okay. Now, if I move you to page 3 under, it's page 3 of 5 and number 4, it talks about a partial DNA profile obtained from that sample, E13, correct?
It does.
Being consistent with a female contributor.
It also says that.
And it says the partial DNA profile matches the DNA profile obtained from who?
Sophia Caneiro.
Okay, and then they give an RMP, right?
They do.
And what's that say?
It says 4.1 octillion, pardon me, in the U.S. population.
Okay. Thank you.
How many octillions are there in the American population? Paul, again, defense. You had evidence that the Brooks Brothers or scarf that this man wore has Sophia Caneiro's hair embedded deeply in it, which means this everlasting sea gobbler in prison wore this goddamn scarf to unalive because he was gonna get chilly. Y'all, defense, you did a real good job of pointing out nothing. Well, I was going to say everlasting cocksucker, but because for some reason Willy Wonka was popping in my head, but I was trying to, if you have little kids, not say that word, but there you go. Sorry. Yeah, he reminds me of the supersonic hearing Texas Ranger. Yeah, Officer Dilbert or Texas Ranger Dilbert. He's giving me Dilbert vibes. Yeah, he really is.
Now, there's also E-12D, and that's quarter of scrapings from entire surface area of the scarf, correct?
Avoiding, that says
Avoiding
stains
stains and
debris.
debris.
So it's a different part.
Okay. And are you familiar with the process of scraping items for DNA as opposed to cutting?
Yes, you can, it's not that different, but that's correct.
And E12D, okay, there's a conclusion under number 3 on page 3 of that same report, correct?
There is. So we're talking about the section of the report that's listed as STR processing results, conclusions, and statistics.
Okay, so we're talking about binary or traditional DNA analysis, correct?
In this section, that's what they did.
In this section. And they're ultimately, they were able to give an RMP for the major component DNA profile, correct?
The deduced major component, and they use the word matches, the profile obtained from Sophia Caneiro, and they provide the calculated statistic without star mix.
Okay, so Paul, explain this to me. Someone conspirized against you was able to track you and monitor exactly your car or knocked you out and was able to drive your car all the way to Keith's house, drive back, start the fire, and then make sure that your Brooks brother's scarf was covered in your niece's hair and blood. Explain it to me, because
Has 14 octillion.
Okay, 1 in 14 octillion?
Correct.
Okay, and again, this is a scarf that was found in that same area as the jeans and those other items, correct?
I don't think I can separate it out, but if you tell me that's where it's from, I believe you.
it was at that moment that I realized I was fucked. Yes, Paul, because there might have been several samples where Star Mix was used, but there were, because of the abundance of evidence you failed to destroy, we have, just 2 mixes that were easy to identify, schmuck.
Now, to just go to, can we go to slide, I'm sorry. Slide 8, or slide 10, I'm sorry. This one. Now, Doctor, you testified about this slide earlier today, correct?
That's correct.
We got that picture of the jeans in that area, correct?
Yes.
Okay, there's actually 2 pictures of the jeans, right?
Well, there's 2 pictures. One, I think, is more like the original, and the other is at the lab.
Okay, gotcha. Now, on this chart, we're talking about E01A1, correct?
That's the name. Yep, that's the sample.
Okay. And ultimately, that is a sample from, correct?
Correct. That's how it's named.
Gotcha. And ultimately, it's a sample from behind the inside of the jeans, correct?
I think so.
Okay, and it's actually like just above the knee area, correct?
The description is at Bodie is fairly limited, but there's more description other places.
Okay, like in the reports, they would.
Correct.
describe it that way. Okay, so we're talking about inside the jeans, above the knee. Okay?
I love that the state is going to places where you wouldn't expect blood to be. You wouldn't expect there to be a mixture unless that person was there. And inside the jeans near the knee, what possibility that a mixture of Paul and Sophia's blood, along with, I believe, Jesse's blood, would be there for an innocent reason?
Fine.
And ultimately that, they drew 2 conclusions, 2 likelihood ratios on E01A1, correct?
I would say they drew a number of conclusions, but the only not excluded conclusions were the 2 on the chart.
Okay, and the 2 on the
Not excluding someone is a conclusion.
I apologize, you're right. They give 2 likelihood ratios with respect to this sample, correct?
They did.
The first is Sophia Caneiro, correct?
Correct.
And that likelihood ratio, that ratio is 470. Yeah, it's hard to read. 476 billion, correct?
We are looking at 1 E01.
E01.
That's correct.
Okay, and ultimately, the other likelihood ratio they give is for Paul Caneiro, right?
That's correct.
And that likelihood ratio is 3.7 quintillion, correct?
Also correct.
Now, I believe you would tell me that those 2 conclusions, those 2 likelihoods ratios that were given by Bodie based upon their analysis those would be reliable results, correct?
Yes.
The fact that this man had to look, this is total speculation. Take this with a grain of salt. But what I get from this man is that he is trying to make a name for himself in his independent lab, and he is trying to ish on Brody Labs because they are one of the larger, sort of very well known labs. So he's trying to make a name for himself by saying, look, Brody Labs isn't using anything that's really, really comprehensive like I'm doing. It pained him to say that they did a good job. If you are an expert and you're not there for a bias reason, then you can admit when, the experts got it right on the other side. You don't have to think about it. Think if there's any way you can wiggle out of it. Because you can see, we're going to go back.
Reliable result.
He was sitting there semantically thinking if there was a way he could make it seem as if it wasn't actually true.
That's correct.
Yes.
When we look at E01A1, what's in front of you, one of the things you have up there is that purple circle, correct?
That's correct.
And that's designed to indicate that those are unknown contributor alleles, correct?
That's a conclusion. All that they are just noticing the alleles that are not in the set of reference standards, and they're from an evidentiary sample. So the assumption is they have to come from at least one unknown contributor.
Right, because everywhere you have a purple circle, there's a 30 at D21, right?
Correct.
And there's a 14 at D2S, correct?
Also.
There's a 14 and a 14.2 at D19.
Yeah.
And then we have a 12 at D1S, correct?
Those are the circled alleles.
And ultimately, all those numbers, that 12, that 14, that 14.2, at those individual loci, locus, none of the family members have those alleles at those locuses, correct?
None of the provided reference standards.
So not Sophia, correct?
Correct.
Like she's not a 30 at D21, right?
We can go back to the original chart, but yes.
Okay.
And this is where the kind of ascension and forward progress in DNA has kind of made this a bit harder to explain, because now DNA, and with the ability to replicate very small pieces of DNA to the point where we can get possibly a partial or full profile, does mean that it's more likely that labs are going to pick up touch DNA. So maybe someone else touched the genes, it was passing, but there is a greater likelihood now that we can process ever increasingly small sample sizes that random touch DNA is going to show up.
Do you need to go back to the original chart?
But that's how it's done. We can. I mean, it's sometimes nice to make sure. So at D21, we can go straight across, which is how we would do that. And we're looking for a 30, correct?
Correct.
So Jennifer, no. Jesse, no. Sophia, no. Keith, no. And Paul, no. So it's an unknown allele for the five of them.
Okay, so you have 4 people of the same family who collectively do not have markers at these loci. Now, what is the probability that of three children born, of Paul's parents, one would be the lucky one that got these random markers? You get 50% of your DNA from your father, 50 from your mother, and the likelihood that a person that shares the same parents is going to have random alleles that haven't been represented in any of the other family population is a bit weird and a far stretch, if you ask me.
Okay, let's go to D2S and let's look for 14.
We have nothing under Jennifer, nothing under Jesse, nothing under Sophia, nothing under Keith, and nothing under Paul.
Okay, let's go to D19 and look for a 14 and a 14.2.
So I'll just do this quickly. So we're looking at, pardon me, D19, is that correct?
Correct.
There is no 14 and there's no 14.2 at that locus from the reference profiles provided.
Okay, then lastly, can we go to D1S and look for a 12?
D1S, there is no 12 across at D1S 1656.
Okay, so based upon what you've said previously, none of the family members are the unknowns here, correct?
That's correct.
And if 4 family members and then Jennifer aren't the unknowns, then the chances are that that unknown third brother isn't one of these unknowns, correct?
You're asking whether you can do a family reconstruction from the 2 brothers, and the answer is you don't have enough data to say that yet.
I mean, if
No,
one had,
it's not just the 2 brothers, it's the 2 children, because you do get partial DNA extractions from the father's side from the 2 children. And then you can again extrapolate that if there is nothing there, then the father component didn't have anything in there. The mother component didn't have anything in there. So it is very likely that Corey Caneiro is also not going to have alleles in this part. There were 4 people that were related. I hate you so much, sir. Look, I have tremendous respect for people that can do hard sciences and look at math and statistics, because the things honestly confuse the ever-living Schnell out of me. But this is a settled science, and the fact that you're trying to make it murky just to protect this one man is really gross.
any of those 5 or 6 alleles, whatever it is, the chances of him having it, the probability is not very high, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to contradict you there. So the assortment is completely random. You can't predict the next result. And there are a number of purple circles. Maybe not all of the purple circles come from the unknown sibling. Maybe only 2 of them do. So they don't all have to come from just one.
Oh my God, at this point, someone needs to put Corey's DNA on the table or we are done talking about this shit. Either someone needs to pony up. I wish the state would do it in a big dong move, like at the end and just go, bled out. We gave this to the defense months ago, but here is Corey's DNA sample, bled out. I am waiting for a big D energy movement like that, because at this point, I want to finish him. I want Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat to be like, DNA expert rejected, not fatality, but just like rejected. I need that voice.
One contributor, and you can't predict what that's going to be just from the 2 brothers you have.
No, let me explain it to you again, because we all had to do this in 7th grade. Now, while there is probably a more complex way to do this, let's do this again. So this is dad. And now this is for 4 children. So this is dad and this is mom, and then this is mom. So we know that they're going to be dominant and then recessive genes. So this child is going to get 2 dominant genes. This child right here is going to be a carrier for a recessive gene, which means if he actually marries someone else with a recessive gene, there are more possibilities that their children might come out redheads. Now, this one is going to have is in fact going to be a redheaded child. And then this one is also going to be a carrier. So the likelihood that you're going to get a random L added into one of these would be difficult.
You said maybe 2 of them, correct?
Well,
But it could be 0, right?
could be 0, could be 2 of them, could be 3 of them. Any one of them would still be of interest.
Okay, could I have the next slide, please, which is I think 11. Now, we're looking at EO2B1, correct?
We are.
And ultimately, there's 1 circle on that chart, D2S, correct?
That's correct.
And that's a 24, correct?
Correct.
And again, none of the reference samples, none of the related people are 24 at that locus.
I'm going to check, and the answer is that is correct.
And then, can we have the next slide? I'm sorry. We're looking at E03B1, correct?
That's the sample.
Okay, and ultimately, there's no unknown contributors in this sample, right?
There are no unaccounted for alleles.
Okay.
Okay, so I found exactly where the defense got their argument, and I've never been more convinced of one of my own theories in my life, but they watched Clueless, and this is where we went with it.
Okay, like right now, for example, the Haitians need to come to America. But some people are all, what about the strain on our resources? But it's like when I had this garden party for my father's birthday, right? I said RSVP because it was a sit-down dinner. But people came that like did not RSVP. So I was like totally bugging. I had to
The fact that I, honest to God, now believe that the female defense attorney Kim K watched this.
haul ass to the kitchen, redistribute the food, squish in extra place settings. But by the end of the day, it was like, the more, the merrier. And so, if the government could just get to the kitchen, rearrange some things, we could certainly party with the Haitians. And in conclusion, may I please remind you that it does not say RSVP on the Statue of Liberty.
I actually feel smarter having listened to that than I do actually watching the trial. I don't know what me, but I now understand why she wanted to be a lawyer.
Now, I think Andy, can we go to the result table? Yeah, that would be perfect. So this is slide number 13. We're looking at slide 13, right, Doc?
I don't have the number, but I have the same slide in hard copy.
Okay, which is D. This is D150, right?
Now, I think the samples that you talked about in the PowerPoint were, I think at first it was EO1A1, correct?
That was one of them, certainly.
Okay. And ultimately, you've testified since that those two numbers, those two likelihood ratios as it relate to Sophia and Paul Caneiro, those are they're reliable statistics, correct?
The calculation is a number that, first of all, it's just a number, but it's a strong number in terms of.
Your work is just numbers, sir. If DNA was nothing but numbers and they didn't mean anything, if the numbers didn't communicate any information, then you wouldn't have a job. So they are not just numbers. They're numbers used to communicate things. They're not God dang it, mother. This is why I wish Jaws had won, Spielberg. This is why, you know what? I'm gonna make a movie, and the Avatarians and the freaking Jaws are gonna get together, and they're just gonna take shit out on humanity, okay?
The two propositions that are being examined.
Okay, you said today, and I think previously, that those results are reliable.
Correct.
We also looked at E02B1, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's a sample where the LR for Mr. Caneiro, Paul Caneiro, is 43,000, correct?
The number that Bodie put in the table.
Okay, and ultimately, I think it's kind of been your position that that's not super helpful, 43,000. Is that accurate?
We're going to compare that to the two numbers in EO1. 43,000 is different.
Okay, and
Okay, it still doesn't negate that there were several very, very good mixtures that were obtained. So there was a weaker sample in all of the things that were tested. But let's go down the list. We've got 47 sextillion and 3.7 quintillion. We've got, let's see, 100 quadrillion versus 45 quadrillion, 750 quintillion and 40,000. And then we've got 980 sextillion to 200 million. So yeah, there are some weaker samples, but there are actually really, really good samples.
Different. Could be the result of the fact that there's not a lot of data for contributor 2. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay. I mean, a lot of times when you see a small number, it's because there's just not a ton of DNA in that spot, right?
That's one possible reason why the LR is lower.
Okay. So like on this chart here, and we're looking at Mr. Caneiro, you talked about 43,000, correct? You've already said that, right?
Yeah.
And then we have, going down a little more, we have 21,000. You probably feel about the same as that one, right?
Statistically, it's the same number.
Okay. When we look at 49 billion on EO6B1, like it's a pretty discriminating number, right?
You need to compare that to the sextillions, the octillions. So 49 billion.
That is God trying to stop you from saying dumbass stuff that negates your entire career path, you idiot. Maybe listen to the stutter and shut the hell up. And again, I would usually not go after a stutter, but this man is lying, is bending science, is absolutely breaking the science behind his own field of study to make this man innocent. And it is appalling. A mind of a scientist shouldn't be bought by money, and this is exactly what it looks like. He's ignoring actual DNA facts, standards, because he doesn't like them and he didn't create them. That's not science. That's you trying to sell your own program.
Is 9 zeros. Full profile is 30 zeros. Difference between something that's a nonillion, 30 zeros versus 9 zeros is 21 zeros. So the difference between the two is 1,000 billion fold.
Okay, but when we look
That's a number.
Okay, when we look at
You are the reason that everyone wanted Richard Dreyfuss to get eaten by the goddamn shark. You know what is annoying about, do you know why Richard Dreyfuss was annoying? Because he was a stupid, insufferable little know-it-all in Jaws that had never been outside a gosh darn lab, didn't understand how anything worked in the real world. And oh my God, you are having us I am actively rooting for Sharknado right now.
49 billion, it's still a big number, correct?
It's a big number, but it's the context, as we've discussed, that is important.
Okay, but I mean, 49 billion is about, let's just say, approximately 7 times the Earth's population right now, correct?
That's not a relevant comparison, but it is a bigger number than the population.
Wait, the flippin' Nope, we are going to, y'all, get your earbuds out if you have the time or the breadstick money. I'm gonna need some bail money because I might get demonetized. You absolutely insufferable, pedantic, and absolutely slimy, ridiculous jerk. You are standing on the shoulders of giants who brought us the fact that DNA was a double helix, that broke that code for the world. You are standing on top of the, shoulders of giants and acting like you are the goddamn science. There is a reason that people inherently do not like scientists with this attitude, because you seem to think that because you are able to stand on the expertise of others who have done so much more profound work for the human race than you, that you're something special. No, you're not. You are actively shitting on your own fucking specialty so that you can make this man look not guilty. You are negating and, a technology that has been ubiquitous in courts since the early 2000s. We've had 25 years of this. It is an accurate measurement to explain that you would have to quadruple the population size of that is currently on the planet to have the possibility of randomly selecting another person with the same DNA profile. It is in fact absolutely within context and an important number. You can't hold alternately that this is an important number and then this is not an important number. You're not giving any status to explain away why every other geneticist forensic lab uses these numbers, but you think it's stupid, so you don't. Okay, Cletus.
Okay. I assume if the 400,000 number for Mr. Caneiro, that LR, and that's a discriminating
You're talking about EO3B now.
EO3B, correct?
Correct.
I mean, obviously, it's not octillions or septillions, correct?
It is not either of those.
It's not quintillions, though, correct?
Also, it's not a quintillion.
But it's a discriminating statistic, correct?
It's a bigger number than the.
What the I don't need a numberologist. I don't need you to explain what a number is bigger than another. Even though I have a tenuous grasp on mathematics, I can puzzle that out for myself. I don't need you to be my, seeing eye dog through which numbers are bigger, dumb. God, this man is pissing me off.
21,000, it's not as big as a 3.7.
Who is clicking their pen? I love it. I'm like, oh no. And now someone is clickety-clacketing their pen. This might be the day that Mo loses it on stream.
Quintillion.
Okay, now your lab, if this was an RMP, let's say, your lab would report 1 in 400,000, correct?
No.
As an RMP, yes, certainly.
Okay. And if it was 1 under it, you'd report 1 in 200 million, correct?
You're comparing apples and orangutans here, RMPs and likelihood ratios.
Both accepted statistical functions, correct?
Absolutely, but you can't compare the calculation with one with the explanation of the other. That's a mistake.
I'm not trying to compare the two of them. We're just talking about numbers.
Oh, hell no. Where is Will Smith? This man does not get to do the chicken neck sass. I'm going to need Will Smith right now, which is something Hollywood hasn't said in a minute. So, Will Smith, you might answer my call. No, this needs gentle pimp slap correction for behavior, allegedly in Minecraft.
As they relate to one another, correct? Like 21,000 is not a big number. 870 sextillion is a big number, correct?
Yes, but the interpretation of the likelihood ratio is different from the RMP.
Okay. Now, when we talk about
Does anyone have an RPG? Asking for a friend. Or an EMP to stop all of this madness.
back to LRs, when we look at E03A1.
E03, yes, I'm with you.
That's a glove found in the basement in Ocean Township, correct?
It's one of the items that was sent to Bodie.
Okay, Sophia Canero's likelihood ratio is 100 quadrillion, right?
Listed on the table, correct. I made that purple, didn't mean.
You want to undo it, you go to the bottom right. And now, on the LR for Paul Caneiro is 45 quadrillion, correct?
EO3, yes, it is.
That's a discriminating statistic, correct?
That's a much bigger number.
Okay, so you're confident in 45 quadrillion being an accurate and reliable result?
It's a number from which the conclusion is more clear, certain.
It's a reliable result.
The calculation is from Star Mix. It's the number which we can draw conclusions from.
Do you recall indicating previously that it's a reliable result?
Sure, it's a reliable result.
Now, when we look at that second row, E01C1, that is a sample which appears to have one contributor, correct?
It's listed as a single source.
Okay. And ultimately, the conclusion that was drawn, the likelihood ratio was 2.1 septillion for Sophia Caneiro, right?
That's what's listed on the table, yes.
Based upon your review of these results, that's like a single source profile, right?
They claim a single source, and it looks like a single source. They could have done our random man on that without wasting the computer time, certainly.
Okay. So it's a reliable result.
It's a result. Single source, one person.
Reliable.
No, is it reliable, mother? Okay, state attorney, you've done a really good job. Like, can you I'll be a pinch hitter. Answer the damn question. I love that he's like, DNA is nebulous. Like, we can't really figure out DNA, which would be a laughable statement if you've looked at our last nearly 30 years of, well, jury trials.
It's calculated, it's reliable.
You don't dispute it, is my point.
Also, Mr. Giggle Sassy Pants, I would like you to fucking remember and maybe have just a little goddamn respect for the fact that while you may not see these numbers as big, they do represent an 8-year-old girl who was slaughtered by this man. So maybe, just maybe, you could have a modicum of decorum and, you know, represent not only your business but yourself better, but maybe have a goddamn little bit respect and humanity for the fucking victims.
You don't dispute that item, E01C1, found in the basement of 27 Tilden, comes back to Sophia Caneiro with a really high likelihood ratio.
I'm not disputing it.
Now, EO2B1, there are, again, we talked about this, and I think it might have been on your chart. The result with respect to the major profile being Sophia Caneiro, 1 septillion, you would agree that that is a reliable result?
Correct.
Okay. And EO2B is a glove from that same basement, correct?
EO2B, yes, I have to go look at the list, but I think that's a glove. They're all gloves except for the jeans.
I'll show you what's been marked as S496. You can look at the first page if you need to. I don't want you to take my word for it. That, what I just handed you, it lists what each item is, correct?
It does.
There's a description, right?
There's a sample name, there's an agency sample ID, and then there's an agency description.
Yes, the answer is yes, mother effer.
All right, so next would be that EO2B1 that is listed. EO2B is listed as what?
Oh, no. No, someone answer the phone call, please. Let that be Dave telling the court to get this man off the stand.
Interior of glove as received.
And ultimately, that has 2 contributors, correct?
Bodie declared that a 2-person mixture.
Okay. And the major profile is that 1 septillion, correct?
Major profile comes back to Sophia Caneiro.
Okay. Jennifer, Jesse, and Keith were visually excluded.
As is on the chart.
Okay. And ultimately, there was an alloy provided for Mr. Paul Caneiro, 43,000.
Correct.
Again, I think you might.
Take care of your lip crusties off camera. Just ew.
Might have said it with this one, but that minor contributor might not have been a lot of DNA there, correct?
There wasn't a lot of DNA. I think we even looked at.
That was some attempted nasal archaeology, but then he remembered he's on camera. Are you sure any of your samples in your lab aren't contaminated? Do you understand what a sterile field is?
The inferred genotype tables to get a sense of how that's done.
Okay, because we can look there, we could have seen that the major contributor was 94% and the minor was 6%, correct?
That's what I recall.
And that's 6%. That's within the Bodie validation, right? That when they validate Star Mix, that 6% is within their validation, right?
Right, they have 5%, 6 and 5 are very close, but yes, it was within what they allowed themselves to calculate.
If you recall, the average peak height, or the RFU that's listed for contributor 2, was also something that was higher than their analytical threshold, correct?
Okay. I believe I have figured out where this gentleman got his argument skills from. Again, I might get copyright for this, but I am in no mood to care. So this is where this witness got his rhetorical argument from. Is going to make more sense than all of the defense's, the expert witnesses' statements. I picked this because the use of numbers in this is about what the defense witness is doing. Change my mind. This expert was like, I got it down. I'm just going to confuse them with numbers, and then me and Cartman are going to explain the world. It's not even the Chewbacca defense at this point.
Almost. So let me fix that slightly. So in order for the data to be recorded, those peaks have to be higher than the peak detection threshold. And for Bodie to perform their analysis, then the percentage of that contributor needs to be higher than their minimum. And both of those requirements were met, and that's why it's on the chart.
Now, when we look at EO3A1, this is the one where we have 2 LRs, correct, for Sophia and Paul?
Yes, correct.
And they're both pretty high, reliable statistics, correct?
They're large LRs by any measure.
You said that those results are reliable results, correct?
Sure.
Okay, because you actually, in your report, your initial report, dated February 6, 2024, you identified as 502.
Get one,
You actually,
sir.
at the end, you actually comment that certain samples would not be in dispute.
Correct.
That's one of them, right?
It is.
And we get that high number, relatively high number, 45 quadrillion from Paul Caneiro, because the contributor 2 template is high, correct? There's a good amount of DNA there, right?
There's 2 parts. There's enough DNA so that the program can reliably work, and the profiles from the calculation are similar to the reference profile provided. You need both.
Now, EO3B, I think when we look at that, the first LR for EO3B1 is for Sophia, correct?
The EO3B actually has listed a number of LRs, but Sophia has the largest number.
That's a reliable major profile, correct?
Correct. There's a lot of data there.
And then when we look at 400,000 for Mr. Caneiro, it's a lot higher than 480, 37,630, right?
That's not one number. There's 480, 37,000, and 630, and 400,000 is bigger than those numbers.
And E04, that's also, it indicates 2 contributors, right?
There are. That's what Bodie chose.
Okay, and then the LR for Sophia Caneiro is 980 sextillion, right?
That's what's listed.
Again, this is a glove from that basement, correct?
It is a glove, and doesn't say where it's from, but it's a glove.
Okay. And the LR for Mr. Paul Caneiro was 200 million, correct?
Correct.
They indicate very strong support for inclusion, but you wouldn't say that, correct?
I would not use the verbal scale on anything. That's correct.
But that result's reliable, right?
Okay, so numerically, these are all really good things, but because they used a verbal scale you didn't invent, you're uncomfortable saying that it's accurate.
Right.
It's 200 million.
Okay, so this is a thing I see a lot of witnesses do, not so much expert witnesses this badly, but it looks incredibly calculated when you will not answer a question that is this simple without qualifying it. I wish more defense attorneys or state attorneys would tell their witnesses that, okay, on cross, if there's something there that, you feel like we need to clean up, I'll clean it up and redirect. This man is undercutting his credibility so much by not admitting when there are good matches. Because of his actual bias against the way Bodhi Labs does everything, he is undermining his own credibility by not even giving them the grace when there are, actually good matches. And I don't know what the defense hoped to achieve with this witness, but it's looking like he is finessing every number to make it look like the Bodhi Lab did a bad job, but having to casually admit that, yeah, I just don't like their verbiage.
Okay, let's just say 980 sextillion as it relates to Sophia Caneiro. That is a reliable probative result, correct?
It is.
Her DNA on a glove from the basement.
Correct.
I want to talk about E05. See that on the chart?
I do.
And there's actually one conclusion that's given, correct?
There's no.
One likelihood ratio that's
Thank you.
given. Okay.
There are conclusions. That's the only likelihood ratio reported.
Right, because they conclude that there is they see three contributors, correct?
They assume 3.
They assume 3, and they indicate that only 1 is suitable for conclusions to be drawn. Is that accurate?
To be reported.
To be reported, okay. And ultimately, that LR is 720 sextillion for Sophia, correct?
Correct.
Again, that's a glove from the basement, right?
5 is certainly one of the gloves.
Okay, and that's Sophia Caneiro's DNA on that glove, correct?
That's the conclusion.
Okay, that's a reliable result, correct?
I don't think you're going to be able to dispute that result.
EO6A. Is that a glove as well, doctor?
It is listed as 2 gloves from New Jersey State Police.
Okay.
There is 6A and 6B.
And there's a result for Sophia Caneiro, correct?
At 6A, there is.
And the likelihood ratio is 870 sextillion, correct?
Correct.
Okay. She's 95, if you recall, she's 95% of the mixture.
It's the major profile without question.
Strong major profile, right?
Just major.
Now, I think you said it already, but that 21,000, it's not a super probative statistic, correct, for Paul Caneiro?
Not from a likelihood ratio, it is not.
But obviously that minor profile doesn't have a whole lot of data, correct?
There are several reasons for why the likelihood ratio is low, and that is absolutely one of the reasons.
EO6B. Doctor, can you tell us what that is, EO6B1?
The 6B is the interior of glove as received from EO6.
Okay. And ultimately, there are 2 likelihood ratios that are reported from that mixture, correct?
Correct.
Jury one would be Sophia Caneiro.
That's the larger of the two LRs reported,
That's 19 quadrillion.
correct?
And then ultimately, there's a likelihood ratio for Paul Caneiro, correct?
There is
And that's 49 billion.
also in the table, correct?
And based upon your review of Bodie's work, the reports, the conclusions, you had indicated previously and in your report that that is a reliable result.
It's a reliable calculation from the data that was provided.
You have no reason to dispute that result.
I do not at the moment. And not then either.
So you only disputed the really small sample size ones, and the rest of them that have been identified as at Brody's, however you dispute it as a high likelihood, you don't really have any, problems with. It's just the small ones. But lo and behold, there's a bunch of really strong samples. So if we threw out the ones you're disputing, Paul is guilty AF, sir.
And EO7A1, you talked about that one, I think, earlier, correct?
That's also listed as 2 gloves from New Jersey State Police.
And ultimately, there's a note on that row, correct? It says C note. And that note indicates what, based upon those results?
They being Bodie, pardon me.
Well, MLS, the defense brought on a DNA expert to explain that because they didn't test the third brother, all of the times that they found really strong matches for Paul's DNA was totally wrong. In fact, use of star mix at all could negate any DNA evidence because this man says it's not a good product. He has his own, star mix that he uses in Illinois. But coincidentally enough, the police department of Illinois don't give him a lot of business.
Is that the only way they can make their data is from the 2 reference profiles, and yet they report likelihood ratios from the other 3.
Okay. And ultimately, that's one of the rows where they couldn't exclude.
So basically, MLS, the defense took 3 hours to try to explain that DNA is completely conjecturable, and DNA, if you have a crime scene with related people, is nearly impossible to solve because they're related. Because DNA isn't unique to each and every person. If you're related, we're just shit out of luck, is basically the thing that they're doing. Now, the state is going through and having him admit that every single sample that was marked, with a high level of likelihood and inclusion for both the victims and the defendant continue to remain still a robust and, accurate depiction of the DNA mixture. So basically, he's having this witness go through and say that every single one, except for the ones he didn't particularly like, are still deemed a very strong match.
Other family members, correct?
There's no visual exclusions listed for EO7.
Okay. And some of those other rows above that and even below that, they visually excluded Jennifer, Jesse, and Keith, correct?
They did. We just looked at EO3. It's another one where they didn't, but the EO7 is another example.
Okay. And that visual exclusion is from the major profile, correct? I think they say that in their reports.
They do. It's not exactly described how they do that, but that's what they claim.
Then towards the bottom of that chart, EO9, E10, E11, those swabs, doctor?
So EO9 is a swab of reddish stain. It's described from the south side of the kitchen island. And you mentioned E10?
Not so much the DNA, but the Star Mix lab. the defense is saying that because there was so much crossover in all of the related people, that it's possible that Corey, the brother that was never evidentiarily linked to any part of this incident, could be in there and they just didn't test him. Again, the state went through 14 days of testimony on every single thing that they did for this investigation. So if there had been any links to Corey, we would have a bunch of stuff in. There just weren't any links to Corey.
E10 is described as DNA swab of reddish stain from the lower kitchen cabinet, and 11 is something different.
What is 11?
11 is also a swab of a reddish stain, but from the pull-out drawer just below the sink is described.
So those last three swabs, they denote being from a kitchen, correct?
They do.
Okay. And one of them, the LR, is for Jesse Caneiro, correct? For E09A1?
Yes, it is. That's not.
Yes, we have every look. This man, the defense had an uphill battle with all of the evidence that the state brought in. I think it would have been much more effective to hold the state to its burden and not come up with this stupid "it's the other brother" theory. I think that "it's the other brother" theory is much more damaging than just saying, "Look, there's a lot of bad evidence from my client, but my client deserves a fair trial. And you might not see us objecting, but when we do, we are going to hold the state to its burden because even my client here, who you might think is the worst of the worst, deserves, by our Constitution, a fair trial. And I'm going to hold the state to its burden of proof to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that my client did this." The four-prong, defense of, first of all, my client isn't stupid enough to leave all of the evidence at his home, to the, well, if all the evidence was found in his home, it's surely a conspiracy, to the probably one of the more offensive arguments. Well, I'm sorry that you're all poor, but $78,000 that have been embezzled from the trust fund is chump change to Paul. He could have paid it back with petty spending. And then the final one that, well, even though nothing linked Corey to the killings other than being a contingent beneficiary, why didn't they test the brother? No, none of this has been. I don't know that the defense is doing anything more than throwing him up as a smokescreen, because let's be very honest, it would have been very easy for the defense to have subpoenaed a DNA sample from Corey and said, "Okay, we want our expert to look at Corey's profile and see if it's in there." And instead, they didn't do that, and they've got this man, saying, "Well, DNA isn't really accurate."
9A,
34 quintillion?
that's the value that's listed.
That's a reliable result, correct?
It's a single source profile.
No reason to dispute it, right?
Doesn't need a likelihood ratio, and it's listed anyway.
Okay. You could actually do a really high RMP for that, right?
In fact, the RMP and the likelihood ratio from a single source have to converge.
Okay. And ultimately that E10, A1, that is a mixture, correct?
It's listed as 2 contributors.
Okay. And ultimately that's from a kitchen area, correct?
It is, I think I just read it, 10, it's right here, pardon me, and reddish stain, lower kitchen cabinet.
That mixture, ultimately they concluded had both Jesse Caneiro and Sophia Caneiro's DNA in that mixture, correct?
Yes, they concluded that.
And there's very high LRs, correct?
There's a strong LR there. Again, it's a 2-person mixture. They could have done RMPs.
Again, I keep wishing for an EMP to make sure that we don't have to suffer through more of this, or an RPG, so we can Resident this
Last one,
evil
E11,
this out.
That is Sophia Caneiro's DNA from that swab, correct?
The major contributor would be from her.
And that's a reliable result, correct?
It is.
Mr. Decker, I'm going to stop you here. You can continue your cross-examination after lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to send you down to lunch. Please don't discuss this case or do any research. We'll be back up here around 1:35, 1:40, depending on when I'm more.
140. Oh, Kim K, don't be smiling. All right, you guys. So it looks like they aren't going to be coming back until a while. Come on. So what I am going to do is I am going to actually end this stream here, and then we will start back at 3. That way I can get some errands done before Snowmageddon 2 pops in, or tornadoes. I'm not quite sure, but the weather is not looking good for my neck of the woods. I can't tell if we're getting twisters or we're getting a snowstorm or possibly a mixture of both, but I do need to get some stuff done. Let's see. The rescue will run with using that it was a specific other person as your defense, and that you created the burden on yourself to prove it. Otherwise, you don't have a burden. Yeah, that's the problem. MLS, they have been holding out Corey as this alternate person, yet they have never, shown evidence that links him. Because I would have been open to, okay, well, we subpoenaed Corey's finances and we subpoenaed, this to show that Corey had links. But again, the investigation never showed any links to Corey. So it's very hard for me to buy this as the, third party alternate. The issue with presenting a specific other person as the perpetrator is that you create a burden for yourself. Otherwise, as a defendant, you don't have the burden of proof. Yes. And this has been an interesting case for burden of proof because the state does not have to put a motive in, but they did put in the financial crimes, the embezzlement from the trust as the motive. And I thought that was interesting because typically the state doesn't put an extra hurdle for itself of having to not only prove beyond a reasonable doubt the red rum, but this other financial crime that was the instigating factor according to their theory. I think that they did a really good job of doing it, but it did make for a rough start to the trial where it was very dense financial information, leading some people to compare it to the Murdaugh trial. But I think it was good to start with that because when we did finally get to the medical examiner, it really explained the incomprehensibleness of this crime and highlighted with the timeline, with the chain of events, that this was most likely using Occam's razor, motivated by the fact that Keith was going to cut Paul off for finding out the second time in a single year that Paul had been embezzling from the trust. So we will be back with with Steven Spielberg-ish and the lost ark of DNA when we get back. I will be back at 3:30, so it is a bit of a longer break, but y'all, we're gonna pause this until Mo can have an adult beverage during the stream, because if we think that it can't get any dumber, remember Tristan Esquire III has redirect. Pray for us all now and at the hour of our interface, y'all, because I'm gonna need an adult support beverage. That just is what it is. So I will see you guys in a little bit. I am going to go run some errands, be where the people are, stop by the post office and things like that. I hope you guys stay safe and warm where you are. And the Petty Express will be back on the rails or off them, depending on how the rest of the day goes, with the Paul Caneiro DNA ain't real witness. I mean, it is a little ironic that the first case that kind of discredited DNA was the O.J. Simpson trial, and they did a wonderful job at it. And then we've got Kim K and Tristan Ponytail III screwing it up all the way. So I will see you guys at 3:30. I will go pick up the Farrells, do my errands, and check on Mr. Mo. And I will share my cauliflower stew recipe if you guys want it when I come back, because that is currently what Mr. Mo is eating the heck out of. My stomach can't tolerate cauliflower anymore, so I don't eat it. But I'll give you that recipe when we get back. So I will see you guys in a little bit. I do have you set up to go to my stream, but I know there is a lot of live stream and breaking news in the Guthrie case. So you are free to go wherever in the internets. Be back here at 3:30 for your ticket on the Petty Express. And I am your priestess of the hot mess. Yes, the conductress of the shit show trial watching Mo. Bye, you guys.